So the $1 million question on everybody's mind is, how do I give an effective buyer's consultation and negotiator commission? Let me introduce myself. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Chirag Shah. I'm the founder of Chirag Shah Coaching. At the heart of who I am is I'm a real estate agent just like you. I got my license when I was 23 years old and had no idea what I was doing. I actually invested in my first business coach at the time, and that's where my passion and love of journey of helping others began. I successfully ran my own brokerage that was acquired by Compass at the end of 2018. I started working as a director of coaching and training, where my baby at Compass was pitching Compass, essentially how you sell the brand of Compass to consumers. In the beginning of 2020, I launched my own coaching business. And it was April 1st of 2020. I think we can all remember that day. It was the start of a national pandemic. And over the last 3.5 years, through the incredible partnership of our community, we've grown the most successful, largest community of Compass agents at any one coaching company in the country. Why is that important? It's because everything that we share with you here today and in any of our coaching sessions is what's working now specific to your brokerage. You know, when I think about coaching and training, I think about time being your greatest investment. And, you know, some of you have heard this before, and some of you will use this as a reminder, and other people this will be completely new. And so at the heart of who I am, I'm a father. I have a 7-year-old daughter, Valentina, a 10-year-old son, Chirag. And when Chirag was born, I went to every doctor's appointment. I did every nighttime feeding. I put him to bed. Some of my greatest memories of my life were the time I got to spend with him when he's little and napping and all of those little things as parents that we know we love. You know, then 2.5 years later, I was having a daughter. And this is probably, I would say, one of the largest mistakes I ever made in my life. I had this crazy idea that now I have this little beautiful princess coming and I want to give her the world. And what does the world look like? It was this 24/7 grind. I'm going to be at the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be in the office at 6 o'clock. I'm going to work, and I want to build. And let me tell you, my memories of my daughter are not being able to feed her a bottle, not being able to put her to bed. I would come home from work and she would literally, I'd go to pick her up and she'd go, away me, away me, away me. Now, that might seem funny on social media or in some different places, but when that's your reality and it's your own kid, it's really hard to grasp. You know, and in my mind, I said to myself, well, I'm doing everything I can for her. I don't understand this. So when I sold my brokerage, all the things that I had built and all these systems I used to really maximize the time and being present with my son, they all went out the window, because at this point I'm like, go, build, earn. And time is your greatest investment. Anyone that has a kid, a loved one, a partner, a friend, love is spelled by attention. And so in 2019, my daughter one day says to me, she's a little more than 3 years old, says, Daddy, I was really mean to you when I was a kid and I was little. And I said, oh, here it comes. Here's the apology. And she goes, you want to know why? And I said, yeah, Valentina, why? And her answer is what changed my life. It's what really has driven my purpose and our philosophy here and working with all of you. She says, because Daddy, you were a stranger. You were never home. And anytime we were with you, you were always on the phone. So I really didn't know you. You know, life is about making impact. And when we got into this business, it was for freedom, flexibility, and limitless income. Our entire business, our entire philosophy, everything that we're sharing with you today is to bring those things into your business and life. Everyone has the right to have a life that their business fits into, not trying to fit their life into their business. It's not what you're here to do. So I hope by sharing this with you today, you have a little more of an idea of who I am, what our heartbeat is, why we do what we do. We believe that business that have structures, systems, and processes are better experience for your clients and better experiences for you. So before we get started today, I would love it if you dropped into the Q&A section of this. What would be most helpful for you to learn today? As Robert always says, you have to really be clear as to what success looks like. And I'd love to hear from the 1,000+ people that are here, what success looks like for you. There's a Q&A portion where you could drop a question in so we can at least have an idea of what you want to learn and what would be most helpful. So I'll give you guys all a minute to do that. All right, so what I'm seeing is, how do I give the buyer's consultation? How do I make sure that I get paid? I'm really unsure what I need to do. Well, look, I just want to share that you're not alone. And when you guys look at the news and all of the stuff that's going around, there are lawsuits everywhere. It's on CNN, Yahoo News, it's on Inman, The Real Deal every day, and there's 11 plus large lawsuits and counting. And when any of these things happen, they're going to be copycat lawsuits and all these different things. And really what I don't want you to focus on is anything with fear. There are too many people talking about this of, please be afraid, the elimination of the buyer's agent, you're not going to get your commission. None of that stuff really is a reality, and never let someone else's opinion become your reality. Because the world is changing faster than it ever did before. And we want all of you to be different. I want you to fundamentally understand before we get started today, one thing: everything you need is right here inside of you. Everything else that you could want to really get to your goals, we're going to share with you today. I want every single person that's sitting on this training to come from a place of confidence and certainty. You quantifiably already have more technology at $1.5 billion under that Compass hood than any other agent at any other brokerage. You have the confidence to be able to project who you are, what you do, create your unique value proposition, and you're already creating an amazing experience for clients. Understanding the gap is, what is your plan for success in this new world? As the structure of real estate changes, you will grow and you will improve too. Now, if you continue to just adapt and grow, it's the same shift when people went into this whole online leads thing. The people that learned how to do it made a lot more money. I believe that this change in this real estate landscape is the greatest financial opportunity an agent will have in their lifetime. And today we're going to share with you how to maximize that opportunity. So let me ask you a question. If you were buying a house and you couldn't afford an agent, what would you do? Think about that. If you couldn't guarantee a buyer's agent's compensation because you just didn't have the money in your bank account, you didn't want to pay for it, would you not buy a home? Or if you were a seller and you had to sell your home and you couldn't afford to pay a broker, would you just not move? Would you just wait and save the money? No. And if you realize that a real estate agent is the most expensive luxury service a person will ever invest in. Period. End of story. And if you understand that, then you want to start thinking about, what do all the luxury brands have in common? You are a luxury brand. You are a luxury service. It's attention to detail, it's service, and it's true luxury. When you go to the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons, it is a curated experience based on your needs. They're attentive, they're great listeners, they anticipate your needs. This is the shift that we all need to make in the service that we offer our clients. Think about it. If you spend $1,500 a night in a hotel, that's an inordinate amount of money. If I showed you a hotel room at $500, you're like, whoa, that's a lot. 7 nights in a 5-star hotel is $10,000 plus. Hiring an agent for a $1 million house could be $30,000. What service costs more? Now, this is the mindset shift, right? So when we think about coaching, I think about a golden triangle: mindset, performance, tactics. Here's the mindset. Mindset is defined by us, is the ability to think through something differently than you presently do today. So the shift I need you to make right now is understanding that you are a luxury service. If there's one thing that these lawsuits in my mind are going to bring to the front and forefront, is, what does an agent do? What type of service do they provide in exchange for the compensation they receive? We all want to operate as high-end luxury services. So therefore, we have to pay more attention to detail, curated experiences, being great salespeople, because that's just understanding how to have effective conversations. Now, pretend the concierge of the Ritz-Carlton was your buyer's agent. What would that experience be like? Let me tell you what it'd be like. They would ask you for every single last little detail. They'd ask you, are you buying the property alone? Is there anyone coming with you? What are your favorite beverages? Do you like snacks when you go out? Here, we have these extra large iPads with internet. We've curated your home search. We've made it easy for you to document all the details. And don't worry, we'll recap and organize everything for you. Oh, you have kids, Mr. Shah? Perfect. Will they be attending the showings with you? What are their favorite snacks? What are their favorite drinks? Would you like us to provide them iPads so they're entertained as you go through the house? Start dreaming over here, because this is really where the opportunity is. The majority of people, and you look at all the messaging around the training around buyer's agency, the lawsuits, no one is thinking about, hey, how do I elevate my service so it's like all the other luxury brands and services in the world, so buyers can understand the value that I provide. Most of this stuff is talking about your value, talking about yourself, leading with fear. You can't do this on your own. None of these luxury brands do that. That's actually the definition of a car salesman, and it's what everyone in the world doesn't like. So I want to introduce this phrase to you: curated luxury. Write this down, and this is what you're going to offer people going forward. What is curated luxury? It's anticipating your client's needs and organically having them happen before they ever have to ask. Could you imagine how great it would feel if you were a buyer working with a Compass agent, and the whole point of the consultation was to learn every single detail about your wishes, your desires, your dreams, the community, the memories you want to build in a home, your job, your lifestyle, your commute, and the entire service was provided to you based on what you said. Every one of your needs was anticipated. You were a partner in the transaction, not somebody following up with an agent to figure out what's next. You knew everything that was going to happen before it was going to happen, and all you had to do was just enjoy the ride. Now that is curated luxury, and that is the opportunity that we all have today. Now, I'm going to keep my coaching hat on. Mastering the transaction will lead you to be a future-proof agent. Now, here's what I want you to think about. If you went back to the beginning of your real estate business, and the first thing they taught you to do was master the transaction, and the National Association of Realtors and any other outlet you went through said, look, especially at Compass, 80 to 90% of your business comes from repeat and referral clients. It means how good of a job you did for somebody that they shared it with somebody else. So if you mastered the transaction, what does transaction mastery even mean? I would break it down into 4 quarters. And if you can do this for 2024, or if you did this in the, more importantly, the beginning of your career, is there any person that could quantifiably tell me today that they would not have made hundreds of more thousands of dollars if they've been in the business 3, 5, 7, 10 plus years? Now, what does that look like? If you spent the first 3 months just mastering the buyer consultation, every detail, every word, every question, curating the experience, taking all the things that are your unique value proposition and tailoring them to the motivations, expectations, disappointments, and concerns of another person, that's curated luxury. I would spend 3 months on that. And then I would spend the next 3 months on mastering the service. What is mastering the service? Listen, when we go on a pitch and we're getting someone to try to hire us, we make a lot of promises. I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. Mastering the service is all of those details. It's every email template. It's every conversation. It's how you collaborate on technology, how you make them a partner in the transaction, all of those little details. Now think about it. When you go to a Four Seasons, they have all of those details figured out for you. That's why you feel so good. That's why it feels luxury. That is the definition of luxury. So if you want to future-proof your business, I would spend 3 months on the buyer consultation, 3 months on the buyer service process, the next 3 months on the listing presentation, and the next one on the listing service process. If you did that, you are future-proof. You'll have mastered something that 99% of agents have not done in the country. And I personally coach some of the most successful agents, and this is what they want to work on right now. The majority of people don't have it figured out, so that's a huge opportunity for you. Future-proof your business. So ask yourself, what are you going to do? Are you going to commit to doing this for Q1 of next year? Or are you just going to keep thinking about it? So let's go through today's roadmap. At the end of today, you'll be able to develop your unique value proposition. We'll show you how to influence your client's decision, how to create the ultimate luxury experience, because that's what this is all about. The Compass Advantage. There's $1.5 billion of technology under here, and we want to show you exactly how to share it with clients. Explaining commissions to buyers simplified. Our Chief Growth Officer, Mike Walker, is going to share with you what I found the most mind-blowing conversation is him and I had it yesterday, and how to pitch and close a buyer's agreement. Gretchen Coley is the #1 team in Raleigh. There's 16 agents, 11 staff members. 50% of their business is cold leads that they get buyer agreements for, and we're going to role play that exact process so you can do it too. So now let's get into the first part of developing your unique value proposition. We call this the client decision matrix. So when everyone makes a decision, there's different factors that go into it. And the first part is you. What do clients consider when hiring a realtor? Now, this is a strategic process, which we're going to give you all the steps, and we want you to do this for yourself. Are they looking for a great negotiator, an active listener, your experience, your expertise, your likability, your reputation, your perspective, your professionalism, the fact that you work at a certain brokerage? How do you actually figure this out? And then the second part is understanding what your clients are searching for online. If you don't know what your client experience is on the places that they're coming to you for, it minimizes your ability to share your unique value proposition. So here's the first part. What do clients find most valuable? Well, just in the spirit of Compass CEPs, learning from reality, one of my favorite Compass entrepreneurial principles. The best way to understand what people find most valuable is understanding how people experience you. So take a picture of this screen, and this is an email template that you can use. I would say, "Dear Mike, I very much appreciate the opportunity to work together. I wanted to know if you could share with me what part of working together you enjoyed the most. We're always looking for ways to improve our clients' experience. Thank you in advance for taking the time to respond, and I look forward to hearing from you." Oops. Give me 1 second. We're good. All right, let me go back to the client's decision-making matrix. So if you're looking at this, my apologies, we had a technical error. And so if you're looking at this, these are the way your clients make decisions, right? First is how they choose a realtor. The second is understanding what your clients find most valuable about you. Now, step one, what do clients find most valuable? Here, take a picture of the screen. This is an email template that you can send out to your clients. Your clients subsequently will share with you what they find most valuable in working with you. This is really important because there's perceived value and actualized value. Perceived value is what you feel you offer someone. Actualized value is the value that they got from you. So once you understand this, you can start developing what your unique value proposition is. The next step in all of this, what is your client's online experience? The reason I want to emphasize this, many of our clients will come in through some portal, even whether it's a referral, they'll be looking somewhere online. There are too many times that agents spend the time in the initial conversation just immediately trying to convert them to a collection. So essentially what you're doing is telling a person the choice that they made to look for a home for themselves is wrong. This is not what you want to do. So let's go through the process. The first thing is you want to create a Google account. And you want to understand what sites they search on the most. You know, in some markets, in many markets, it's Zillow. Other markets, it's Redfin. I still don't know who goes on realtor.com. And what I want you to do is start a property search. Understand strategically how are the properties being displayed. Then the next thing you want to do is understand what information is being provided. Then you're going to want to look on the side column to understand what other property suggestions they're having. Now, the reason that you're doing this is now you're understanding your client's experience, Remember, a great salesperson meets somebody where they are. But if you have no idea what they're looking for, what they're seeing, what information they're provided, what other information they're suggested, it's going to limit your ability to close a client and get a buyer's agreement. Next thing I want you to do is sign up for the home search. What is the process for signing up for the Save Search? What are the options? Is it real-time, daily, weekly? Understand what the client is being suggested to do. How often does the portal email you? What content is in each email? You're going to want to pay attention to what do they say in the email? How do they share open houses, just listed, just sold, and what other information is provided? See, we call this positioning. Now, if you have to position yourself in a marketplace or to a consumer, you need to understand essentially what gap you're trying to fill. So the first part is understanding all the details of where they are. Now, when you sign up for the other web portal, I want you to take the same Gmail account and sign up for a Compass collection. The thing that you're looking for is what makes the collection unique. We already know about the collaborative, the real-time approach, and so on and so forth. But you want to understand the emails that they're getting having a collection, the emails they're getting from Zillow. And listen, I say this all the time. As soon as you're offering technology, you become the tech person. There is no AEM, there is no support at compass.com. So you need to understand what is the sign-up process? What is the email they get? How do they download the app? And you need to be able to do that easily and be able to explain them to it, because that is the process also of getting them off where they are to where you want them to be. Now, in doing this, the goal is to understand the gap. Each one of these portals, because of their size, has a clear starting point and a clear ending point. And as an agent, a local market expert, a human being that deals with people and lives in these communities, you're going to have a unique perspective that these websites can never fill. So here's another one that you want to take a picture of. So when a buyer goes and you start having a conversation, they tell you you're searching on Zillow, here's exactly what you want to say. People really love blank about Zillow. Can I share with you what our clients have also found helpful and insert the gap of what the portal doesn't do? So an example would be, people really find the ease of using Zillow. One of the things that we find that our clients find most important is our ability to curate a home search to their lifestyle and the things that they find most important in the community. So would it be okay if I asked you, what things do you look for when living in a community? And the whole entire conversation shifts. And this is how you can start crafting your value proposition. Now, we shared with you today that we're going to talk to you about really mapping this out, right? And there's this concept of operationalized luxury versus curated luxury. Now, think about it like this. What you offer is curated luxury. How you do it is operationalized luxury. Listen, the number one problem that causes everyone's problems in real estate is they mix up what they do with how they do it. What you do is you're a salesperson, period, end of story. If you only get paid when you sell something and you operate on commission, 1099 income only, you are a salesperson. How you do your job as an advisor and a consultant are two different things. So curated luxury is what you offer. How you do it is operationalized luxury. So we're going to walk you through now a very tactical process on how to do this for your unique business. Now, as you're going through this process, you're going to learn different things about your business. You're going to learn things you do really well. You're going to learn areas that you need improvement. You're going to have a lot of aha moments. You're going to understand how to map out the journey of the customer. So let's get tactical. We call this experience mapping. Now, for experience mapping, I suggest everyone get one of these. An extra large Post-it note. Now, if you go to your beautiful Compass office, this is a great thing to do with colleagues. It's a great thing to do in the office because they have all these beautiful glass walls. Now, why extra large Post-it notes? Well, depending on how you write information, your brain will process it in a different way. If you put the information on a Google Doc, you're going to process it and retain it and think about it one way. If you do the same thing in the notes section of your phone, it's a different way. If you do it on a whiteboard, it's a different way where it's still going to look at all the information as one segment. Now, the reason that we suggest extra large Post-it notes is each Post-it note is a different segment. So it would allow your brain to compartmentalize each part individually. And then when you look at it as a whole, you can look at the entire journey. And this is how you experience map out and operationalize luxury. Now, let's just start with the buyer's consultation, right? So first part, overview and who you are. How are you communicating that information? I would put that into one place. Now, think about this. That's like your first introduction, whether you send a piece of email, it is a physical buyer's presentation, if it's the one that we provide you, the one Compass provides you, the one that you come up with on your own, that statement has to share something really specific. And you want to get clear as to what you want somebody to think about you, how do you want them to feel about you, and what do you want them to do based on how that's displayed. You're going to want to put that on the first one. The next part is it's all about you, the client. And that's really about pre-qualifying a buyer. And we'll show you how to do this in a role play. But as you go through a consultation, this is where we talk about operationalized luxury. If you go to the Four Seasons, you go to the Ritz-Carlton, from the time you get out of your car to the way that you walk up to the desk, the questions they ask you, how they check you in, how they take your bags, how they bring you up to the room, the way they tour you through the room and show you the different benefits and features and what's in there, that is all a curated experience that has been operationalized. So when you're experience mapping, how do you make it all about the client from the beginning? The next part is your ideal lifestyle. How are you asking about their lifestyle, the home, the community? And really, essentially, that is your needs analysis. What are all the questions that you're going to ask? Remember this, the sole purpose of data is to be able to make future decisions off of it. So remember, we talked about this whole curated luxury where they share all of their details and you can provide them this amazing service. Well, that's going to be based off of the questions that you ask here. Your next place is knowing your numbers. What numbers are you sharing with them? What are the details? How's it being communicated? And how macro and how micro do you want to go? Explaining the market. Now, if you're experience mapping out explaining the market, that should literally be your script, the way that you share comps, the way that you ask them questions. Who holds the iPad when you do this? Are you switching the slide? Are they switching the slide? These are all the details. Then the keys to an effective partnership. That's what you control, what they control, what you control, and ultimately what no one controls. That's creating role clarity. We'll share with you how to do that, but you have to explain that to all of your clients. Writing a winning offer. What are all the components into writing a winning offer? So these are all things that you want to map out in detail. Now, by experience mapping this out, you're now able to look at what is your client experiencing? How are they experiencing you? Are you talking the majority of the time? Or are you asking questions? Now, by doing this, this is how you essentially future-proof your business. Because when you're able to understand each individual detail of what a client's experience is like, you can create the experience in your mind that you want them to have. Now, another part, the Compass advantage. How do you share the value of Compass? What are the buyer tools that you use? And how is that displayed? Is it visually? Is it through an iPad? Do you show them how the tools work? Do you make it collaborative? You want to start thinking through doing this. And my suggestion is for people doing this, don't make this a college-style lecture. Remember, a person buying a home, all they're thinking about is, how do I get through this transition? How do I not overpay? How do I find a home? Like, this is a really big borderline, could be inconvenience, right? Picking up your whole life and moving it somewhere else. They're thinking about them. So if you spend the entire time talking about, I can do this and I can do this, I can do this, it doesn't feel very luxurious and you're being a monopolizer in the conversation. Mutual commitment. how do you map out your commitment? That's like what their expectations are of you and what are your expectations of them. I suggest that every agent should have a very clearly defined list of expectations they have of any buyer that they work with. Now, if you're able to have clear expectations, it's essentially creating a filter. And the whole point of a filter is to keep the wrong things out. Look, there are too many years that we spent in this business, and I can say this from when I was an agent, taking out people that did not have the same commitment to me as I had to them. I would block off time every weekend. I'd take time away from my family. I'd invest my time, money, and resources. And in the end, there was nothing that stopped them from going somewhere else, going direct, besides a verbal agreement. And if you look at any other service, especially contingency-based services, right? If you look at the lawyer that was in this class action lawsuit, he had a contingency-based contract that was 30 to 40% of the entire settlement. People don't work just on handshakes. So you want to understand what are your standards and what are the commitments you expect out of other people in exchange for all of the things that you offer. What happens next? Now, we'll start talking about some of these items as we continue, but it has to be clear to a buyer what are the natural next steps, because this is where I find like really a gap. Because everyone shares all this information that this is going to happen and this is going to happen and I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to curate a home search. I'll look for all these things in the community. I'll send you all this information, but it's not clear when they're going to get the information, how they're going to get the information, how soon they're going to get the information, what are all the things that are going to happen. Because remember, at the end of a buyer consultation, it goes from consultation and then the next big mile mark is touring properties, but there's several steps that happen in between. Now, I call testimonials client experiences. You'll want to go through setting up the right client testimonials. Now, why do I say the right client testimonials? Client testimonials were created for people to overcome the natural objections that people have from a product or service. So if you go and watch an infomercial, the reason at the end of the infomercial that you don't even understand why you want to buy a home gym when you hate working out at home is because there's been a person that shared their unique experience that's alleviated every concern you had to buying the product or service. So what I want you to do is, being tactical, write down the 3 to 4 objections that you get from people that would stop them from hiring your service. And through each one of those unique things, you'll want to find a person that shares the story that overcomes the objection. So if the objection was, you know, I had to sign an agreement and I was afraid that I have to pay, that I might have to pay a lot of money. Well, you could have a client say, working with Chirag was the best investment I ever made, and here's why. And when you're sharing testimonials, it's really important to quantify it down to a specific experience that somebody had. And if you refer back to that template that we talked about in the beginning of understanding what your clients like the most, this is where you're really building this out. And by building this out, when someone sees an experience and they read a testimonial, a person looks at it, it's like, oh, I want that. So if you're looking at, again, hotels, resorts, high-end hospitality, you're reading the reviews, you're really reading people's experiences. And if you see the ones that really assimilate with what you're looking for in your mind, you're like, okay, I want to go there. That's exactly what I want. And it's understanding how behavioral psychology works for people and the decisions that they make. Now, what are the next steps in this? Number one, there's post-meeting action steps. Now, post-meeting action steps could be the way that you document the information in your CRM, what information you're documenting, the follow-up emails that you're sending your clients, right? What happens after the meeting? So your next big post-it note will say post-meeting action steps. And through these action steps, you're going to go through all the little details that have to happen. Remember, in doing this is going to be one of the largest lifts you'll ever make in your career, because here's the reality. No one has ever told you to think this way, operate this way. This is a mixture of being a great salesperson, being a great systems architect, and being a great customer service people. You're putting all 3 of these things together. And this is where you really understand what is your unique value. Now, in doing this, there are things that you're going to want to account for. Every email, every text message, every video, every touch point, you want to have this mapped out to a science. Now, when you think about this, when you map this out to a science, or if somebody decided to join your team, you're part of another team, this is like buying a franchise. When you buy a franchise, you're essentially buying somebody's operating process that's repeatable, predictable, and scalable. This is what you're creating for your business here. So what are the post-meeting action steps? Setting up collections. Do you set up the collection with the person on the initial meeting? Do you set up the collection after? How do you share the collection? What are the details that you want to add? Because that comment box is the best way to show that you really listen to somebody, and sharing the context of how that home fits their unique needs. So if they tell you about the community, they tell you about their commute, they tell you about certain things they want in the house, there's agent-only remarks, there's your experience in the market, there's your experience in community, and this is where really that curated luxury comes, because a person's going to want to know, if they look at a property, well, where's this in relation to my kid's school? Because that's really important to me. Where's this in relation to my wife's job? Because, you know, her commute has to be less than 20 minutes every day. Does this have a finished basement? I can't really tell by looking at it, because all the rooms are empty and none of the pictures are labeled. These are the details. Touring properties. Now, this is an area I think that we can all gain massive growth. If you're touring properties, now, however you decide to communicate with your client on collecting properties, sharing with them that it's okay that they find them on their own, the ones that you find, how do you set up the properties? What is the confirmation email they get? Do they get a confirmation email that says, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Shah, like, we look forward to meeting you at 2 p.m. Our first address is 123 Main Street. We have a total of 5 properties scheduled today. Below are the addresses and the time that we allotted for each property. Please note, if there are any of these that you would like to spend additional time, please let me know and I'll adjust our schedule accordingly. Well, again, we'll meet at 11 a.m. at 123 Main Street. I've also, in an effort to go green, attached the digital show sheets for you to review in advance. And we'll have an extra large, we'll have an iPad for you with everything loaded, so it's a seamless experience. Looking forward to meeting you. And then I would just confirm again. Then they go out to the properties, right? When they get in your car, if you're driving them around, are there drinks in there? Are there favorite snacks in there? Are there things that keep their kids entertained? These are all the details of touring property. How are you collecting information from them? What they liked about the house? What are the deal breakers for the house? Are there any additional information they want about, like, the community and HOA, additional fees, comps, whatever it is? How are you collecting all of this information while you're out? And then the next thing is, how do you organize the information and share it with somebody else? That is operationalized luxury. Then writing the offer. What is your offer process? We're not just texting people, hey, like, I'm interested in this property. So you want to make an offer? What do you want to offer? That's not a professional service. They're about to write an offer on the largest investment of their life. Sit down, have a meeting. What's the meeting? What's included? What information do you get? How do you position their offer? How do you reshare the market and the comps to get them to set up an offer that positions them for success? Then once the contract is signed, preparing for your move, contract to closing. This is where really being a concierge, and this whole, if the Ritz-Carlton was the buyer's agent, imagine the Ritz-Carlton concierge was the buyer's agent. This would be the most buttoned up process in the world. They would have a Google Calendar with all the important dates, vendor recommendations, weekly check-ins, like, hey, this week we have to accomplish this. I sent you these recommendations. Is there anything else you need me to do to support you in the process? Do you have any other questions? You should be checking in every week. And this is where we build a timeline. Even the best agents I work with, they email their clients all the next steps. But remember, they haven't bought real estate. They don't know how the process works. You're making them the project manager when they're paying you compensation for a luxury service. And then post-closing, what are all the things that happen after? Do you like to send them a bottle of wine? Some people like to buy food. Some people throw housewarming parties within their house for them to meet the neighbors. Get really clear on what those next steps are. And this is how experience mapping works. This is how you essentially build the end-to-end client experience, the journey of the customer. Where are they today? Where are they looking to go? How do you help them get there? And what does success look like? I can tell you this. What success looks like is creating the conversation that you want other people to have about you when you're not there. So if you think about it, what does this look like? Working with Chirag was the best decision I ever made. All I had to do was share with him all the things that were important to me. And he curated this entire experience where everything was just done for me. And all I had to do was pick the house. And I was a real partner in the transaction. It was two-way communication. And they were always 3 steps ahead of me to make sure I was organized, I met my timelines, and I reached my goals. So that is experience mapping. Now, I want to introduce, for the next part of this, we get into this whole commission conversation. I want to introduce you to Mike. Mike is our Chief Growth Officer. Mike, like me, is another multiple decade real estate nerd. Mike has ran a brokerage. He's sold real estate. He's one of the top negotiation trainers and speaks on platforms all around the country. And Mike has the most simple, effective way of how you explain commissions to your clients, really the nuts and bolts of it. And so, Mike, I'll let you take it from here.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And it's exciting to be here today. Chirag, I'm going to have you kind of also work the slide deck then still for me. Want to go to the next one? That would be great. My background and expertise for the last 22 years has been real estate. I've been teaching negotiation for 15 years nationally. I've worked in over 31 states, teaching both legal ethics, compliance, negotiation law, all of those varieties. And I've worked in the areas of politics to military. And so this compensation conversation, it's an important one. And I think there's a lot of details that is, as buyer agents, as you're grasping it, wasn't really ever something you had to discuss as a listing agent because of just the way that it's facilitated. And so I think that when we look at complications that come up within commission environments, clients are always going to have questions. They're going to have things that are questions that are relevant to them making a decision. And when those questions aren't answered, how it gets presented to you is not, hey, I still have these questions. Clients and consumers will say, well, I'm not ready, or I need to take some time to think about it, or they just won't say anything at all. Oftentimes, the consumer will not ask the questions that are necessary to get them to the decision. And so there's 3 elements within commission that we have to deal with. And Chirag's been talking a lot about the first one, which is value. The value proposition, making sure value's there, making sure someone's excited about your unique value and what you can provide them as their client, or as them being your client. The other attribute, though, is commission structure. I can love you as an agent, and if I'm not aware of like how the commission gets structured and what all of the outcomes and possibilities are, I'm going to still feel weary moving forward, which may mean that I won't sign your exclusive agreement, which may mean that I might delay wanting to go out, which may mean a whole bunch of other actions that you may not be construing as connected to just commission structure. And then also the final question is going to be, how does it get paid, right? Like when it comes time to closing, what are all the different versions of how a commission that might be owed to my buyer agent, how does that get paid? How do I pay it? What are other ways that it can be paid? And so when we look at these decision elements or decision matrices, right, we have to address these 3 things. Now, the value element, and I know that you guys are going to get a live demonstration today of a buyer agreement and the buyer consultation and just going through things. But commission structure, when we look at the structure, I've seen a lot of questions come in today around, well, what if we do this and what if we do that? And there are probably 24 different scenarios that we can run with buyers. And I know some agents are just asking, well, can't you just tell me what the right answer is? And the answer is always going to be what's the best fit for you as the agent and for the client. So I'm going to kind of station structure here for a second because you guys have had training on that as well. But I want to talk more about how does this get paid. And so Chirag, if you can go to the next slide for me. When it comes to commissions, one of the things that we have to grasp is that your commission is a closing cost. It's the same as a loan origination fee, a title prep fee, an attorney fee. And when any of those parties want to be paid for the work that they've done on a transaction, they typically will submit to the closing agent, right? Whether that's title company, attorney, they will submit to the closing agent a fee agreement that was signed by that particular client. So that might be a legal contract, that might be, a mortgage commitment, it might be something that the borrower signed with the mortgage company that agreed to their fees. And so as a buyer agent, the very first thing that you have to understand is that you would be submitting an agreement, either your exclusive agreement or a paid fee agreement, that showed that the buyer agreed to pay you a fee to the actual title company or to the attorney, to the closing agent for the transaction. Those particular fees show up on the settlement statement like everything else. They're HUD approved. They can be financed. There's all different types of ways for your compensation to be allocated. So if a seller is opposed to paying a commission, but is open to paying a seller paid closing cost or concession, strictly based on the ego around the word commission, seller paid closing costs or concessions can pay for your commission. Financing, depending on if a program would permit it, would allow your fee, as well as other particular closing costs or fees, to be included in that particular loan program or the financing. Buyer can also obviously bring cash like they would for anything else that they would be closing or be responsible for, to also pay your fee. And or your fees can be negotiated between brokerages. So I can have a buyer who says, hey, I would love to pay you the fee. And I can say to my buyer, great, I will do everything in my power to avoid you having to pay the fee. I can try to negotiate it with the other brokerages. We can negotiate concessions. But at the end of the day, if that fails, you're agreeing to X. And I can have, a number that they are agreeing to, that if everything else fails, they'll ensure that I'm getting paid this, right? So when we look at all of the different ways that this can transact at closing, it's really helpful for people to understand the details of this, because they might love you as an agent. They're like, you're a friend. We like your information. You're great in the market. We see you everywhere. But at the end of the day, if I can't teach you what your money is going to look like the day you close on property, you're going to hesitate. You know what a loan looks like. You know what the mortgage process may look like. In fact, the mortgage broker can discuss that. But if they don't know how your commission is going to look, it's going to cause issues. It's going to cause them to be a little bit wishy-washy. So from a negotiation standpoint, that's one thing. The other question that we got that came in was just about the agreements themselves. And the biggest negotiation request that I get around the country around buyer exclusives is, Mike, I can't get anybody to sign a buyer exclusive. They don't want to sign an exclusive, etc. Chirag and Gretchen are going to talk about that today. But my biggest negotiation recommendation is start short term. Start with a 7-day. Start with something where they get into a habit of signing an agreement. They know that it's only for a week. They're like, great, I loved it. That protects you for anything that you showed them that weekend if they decide to write an offer. And then the next week, it's another short-term agreement. Eventually, what you're going to see is you're going to see a buyer who says, hey, can we sign one that's a little bit longer? Because they don't want to continue to sign those every week. And then you've got a good client. But start with short-term agreements. They're easier to walk into in regards to a relationship. And Chirag, I'll let you introduce our superstar of the afternoon as well.
Thank you, Mike. Look, the only thing I want to add to this is the word comes down to standards. Tony Robbins always says, change your standards, change your life. And for every single one of us, as I shared in the beginning, time is your greatest investment. There's no one size fits all solution. There's a lot of different ways to do an agreement, as each of you are all individuals. We all have to be clear as to what our standards are. And the $1 million question that I get all the time, Chirag, what happens if my buyer doesn't want to sign an agreement? Well, at that point, as a business owner, you want to decide if you want to work in an environment that your compensation is not protected. Some people feel that they offer such a good service that they don't have to worry. Right. But there's no attorney, no doctor, no dentist, or anyone that offers a service is not going to go into some sort of simple agreement. And I also find framing this conversation with people like, look, just like when you go to a lawyer, you have to agree to a certain compensation, how it gets paid. It's very similar here. So here's the $1 million question. What type of experience are you looking for in an agent you partner with to purchase your home? Now, if I was personally purchasing a home, I would look like someone like my friend Gretchen. And, Gretchen's a friend first, well, a client first, but now a friend first. And she's really one of these inspirational people. Her and I were having a conversation yesterday as I was driving my son home from boxing. And we're talking about business. We're talking about today, the need for practicing and leadership. And so I asked my son, who's 10 years old, at the end of it, I said, so what'd you think about that? And he goes, Daddy, sounds like she's really good at her job. And I said, well, why would you say that? Because she spent a lot of time talking about how big of an impact her job has on other people and how much people need to bleep and practice, right? She goes, I go, so what'd you learn from the conversation? He goes, if I want to be great at anything, I need to practice. So he goes, Daddy, how successful is she? I go, that's interesting. She runs the #1 team in all of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I go, you know how many people work with her? And he goes, how many? I go, a lot more than Daddy. And she goes, really? Because obviously Daddy and every kid's eyes superstar. I go, there's 16 real estate agents and 11 employees that she has working for her. He goes, can I meet her? I go, yeah, sure. I'm like, this is from a 10-year-old kid. So like what I want to share about Gretchen is the ultimate student of the game. I remember when I met Gretchen, it was doing a training like this. She reached out to me after, and I'll let you fill out this, she could share the second half of the story. She goes, I need to walk like you, talk like you, sound like you, and I need you to be in my pocket. Because the most important thing that she said was, she's like, we all forget that we're salespeople. If we don't know how to talk to people, we're not going to make money. So we're going to role play this process out. And I'll let Gretchen kind of give you her backstory and how this process all came about for her. Gretchen?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It was awesome to hear from you. I've heard so much about you, and I can see what all the hype is about. It's totally real. And thank you, Chirag, for inviting me on. We have been working on this buyer process for a long time. I started working with Chirag in September of last year. And before that, we had a very dedicated system, which we have honed in with Chirag's help to walk buyers through a process and give our agents a process that is very easily replicated and duplicated. And as Chirag said, 50% of the business that we do is sphere of influence, agent to agent relationships and past clients and referrals. But 50% of the business that our team does comes from cold leads. So the system that we have has to be able to convert in both ways. And the biggest mistake that I see is people who agents on our team who have a cold lead, they follow the system every step. And when they have a sphere of influence or somebody that they know, like, and trust, and they have a relationship with, they don't follow the process. And that is the recipe for failure and devastation from an agent's perspective, and the loss of friendships, because people don't understand what to expect. So we've spent a lot of time on this process, and we feel like we've gotten it to a place where it works, and it works at a really high level.
And is this a learned skill that anybody can learn?
It is a learned skill that anybody can learn. And in fact, it's just like you said, when you talk about, spending 3 months of time learning the system, learning the presentation, learning to bring the leads in, and then you spend 3 months learning to systematize the process after the fact, is true. When we bring new agents onto the team, whether they're a seasoned or a brand new agent, they spend the first 3 weeks doing nothing but the buyer presentation, learning how to work with a buyer. And then we take them and advance them through the steps in that pace. So with practice, every single word of this has been thought out and really dissected to make sure that it's correct. And with practice, it will roll exactly the same way that it does for us. Now, our process and our value proposition may be different than what you have. So I would encourage you to spend some time figuring out what you have to offer to a buyer and why they should work with you, so that you can take any presentation that is in Compass or anywhere and you can dial it in and make it your own. It takes time, it takes energy, but I promise you it is worth it on the back end.
So before we get into the role play, let me share a concept with you. I learned this, I can call this divine intervention. So when I went to the Compass retreat, I promised my kids, I'm divorced, so I promised my kids I would never miss another day when I have them. I have them on Monday, Tuesdays. Normally I go to the retreat for a whole week. So I hopped on a plane Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., got to San Diego at 12 p.m., meetings, events, woke up, Gretchen, myself, and Jen Smear did an awesome team building presentation, had a few more meetings, events, a dinner, got back on a red eye and came home. Now I had to work the whole next day and I had my kids. So it's about 7:30 in the morning. And if you've ever been to JFK Airport at 7:30 in the morning, the Starbucks line is insane. You would think they're selling a foreign substance, and the way that people are acting, they look like a group of addicts. And so, you know, I had some space and I was kind of just standing there waiting and watching people barrage these poor baristas. There were just 3 baristas and none of them were on their cell phone. And you could tell that they were like on overdrive and they're still just trying to be polite. And so a woman tapped me on the shoulder and she goes, "Excuse me, sir, your backpack is open and your wallet's hanging out. You should close it before somebody steals it." And I was like, and I'm half asleep and I'm really waiting for my double shot cappuccino so I can wake up and go be myself again. So I start talking to this woman and she turned out to be a bartender. And what she said to me was something that changed my viewpoint on a lot of this and will change yours. And I said to her, I go, you know, it's really interesting. I go, people have like this "I'm the only person in the world" syndrome where they just keep going up and thinking they're the only person. They don't respect there's a line. And she goes, you know, my sister and I always say, and she goes, I learned this in being a bartender and the way that people want to cut lines and the way that they speak to us. She goes, they suffer from main character syndrome. I said, excuse me? And all of a sudden my brain just woke up. I go, main character syndrome. I go, what's that? She goes, yeah, they think they're like the main character, that everything revolves around them. I go, wait a second, hold on. I go, you know, you really need to make it. And then my coaching hat went on. I'm like, you really should make a t-shirt that says, do you suffer from main character syndrome? I go, you don't realize this, but this concept that you just shared with me is going to change the lives of thousands of people. Now, here's what you need to understand. If you go into this conversation talking about, here's who I am, here's what you do. I saw an Inman article that had 9 things to do. And literally it told you to do is share all about yourself, only the things that you offer, going through these fear tactics of, can you do an inspection on your own? You think you're the main character. You're not. Your job in a buyer consultation and being a buyer's agent is to be the director. The buyer or the buyers are the main characters, and your job is to set them up for success, know everything about them, and make sure they have everything they need so they feel like the main character. So if you're still having presentations that you're talking at people and just sharing all the things you do, you're suffering from main character syndrome, and today's the day it changes. So here's the way this is going to work. I'm going to start, and there's select parts I'm going to do. Gretchen and I are going to switch, and we're going to go through the entire consultation together. And then in the end, we'll kind of dissect it, share different parts. We'll have some time maybe to answer a couple questions. So the first part about this, and then we're going to hop into character. We're not breaking character. It's all about you. So Gretchen and her husband are going to be in our office. So I'm going to start off. Hey, Gretchen, thank you so much for taking the time to come to our office today with yourself and your husband.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, look, before we get started, would it be okay if I asked you a few really important questions so that we could solely focus our time together talking about the things that are most important to you?
Absolutely.
You know, Gretchen, I always say that moving is about as fun as paying taxes, something that no one really wants to do, but something you have to do. So what makes this the right time for you guys to make a move?
Well, we're excited to move to Raleigh. My husband recently got a job here, and you know, we're really excited about the potential of being able to be in a new city and a better climate.
Got it. So, you know, as a result of moving to Raleigh, what are you most excited about?
Well, I'm really excited to be able to be outside all year long. I'm particularly excited that my children may not have to go to private school anymore. I've heard the public school system is really phenomenal in some areas. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited for my children to be able to experience a different style of community than we're currently in.
Great. So what I hear you saying is your husband has been offered a different job. You have to relocate. But what you're most excited about is really a lifestyle change, right? The public schools, the community, being able to be outdoors all the time. Sound about right?
That's exactly right.
Perfect. And Gretchen, what are your expectations of an agent you partner with for the purchase of your home?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, because we're coming from out of state, I'm really looking for someone who is an expert. I've been looking at homes online, but it's really hard to get a feel for areas and neighborhoods and, you know, what to expect when you live there. And so I'm really looking for someone who's got a handle on the market, who has a high level of expertise and can help show us numerous areas, because I do not want to have to go into a rental to figure it out.
Got it. So your expectations are of somebody who really boots on the ground, a local expert that could help curate things for you. Now, what are your expectations around communication?
Mm. Well, I don't need to be communicated with every single day, but I need to know what's going on. I need someone who is proactive. I do not want to waste a bunch of time. So when I come to town, I'd like to know what we're going to see, have a plan, have an understanding of places that I need to visit on my own. And I expect someone who's going to communicate with me proactively. If I am asking you a question, we have a problem.
Got it. So you want it to be, you want an agent that's a partner that proactively makes you part of the process and keeps you ahead.
Absolutely.
And Gretchen, in our goal to not only meet to exceed your expectations, it's important for us to understand if you've had any disappointments working with real estate agents in the past or any service providers, so we ensure none of those things happen during this process.
Hmm. I would say that I've worked with several agents before. Some have been better than others. I think the biggest thing for me is my time and making sure that I understand what is happening in the process and where we are in the process. So I think an experience that was a little tougher for me was where I had an agent who was a friend and they weren't really an expert in the area that I was looking in. And, I felt an obligation to use them, but their level of service wasn't the same as what I'd experienced. They weren't as proactive. They weren't preparing me for the next steps. And even though I bought multiple houses, it's different every time you buy.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. And my last question is, do you have any concerns with making a move this time in terms of transitioning out of your current home, finding your next home, inventory, interest rates, anything that you'd like to share that's important for us to know?
Well, as I said before, my biggest concern is not having to go into a rental. I do not want to put my children in a rental in an apartment or a house or whatever while I figure out. It's very important to me to find a place where we can get there and settle in quickly and have my kids start making friendships. And I'm looking at the market and it seems like inventory is really low. So, I don't want to make a bad decision. I want to make sure that wherever we choose to live fits the type of lifestyle that we want to live and gets my children acclimated very quickly.
Perfect. Gretchen, would it be okay if I just repeated back what I heard to make sure that I listened to all the details, and feel free to add anything else that I might have left out?
Absolutely.
So really what's motivating you to make this move is your husband's been offered a new position in Raleigh. What you're most excited about happening is the new lifestyle, being outdoor, your kid's not going to private school, and just really the experience of being in another community. Your expectations of an agent are, since you're coming out of state, is someone really listening to what you want and understanding the right communities and homes that fits your family's unique living needs as well as lifestyle needs. Now, your past disappointments have really been around communication, and you've emphasized how valuable your time is. And I quote is, if you have to ask a question, that we did our job wrong. So you really want to make sure that you have a partner in the process that not only organizes the transaction, that keeps you informed for the most important details ahead of time. Your concerns, ultimately, really what I hear is around your kids having a smooth and easy transition. You don't want to move them from where you are today to live in a rental, to potentially have to move again, school districts. And what's most important is really getting them assimilated to the community and friendships quickly. Did I hear everything you said correctly? Is there anything else you want to add on?
That's right. I think that's it.
And lastly, Gretchen, it's important for us to understand, what do you envision an agent doing for you that you feel that you and your family can't do on your own?
I don't know that I've thought about that before, but I would say really that neighborhood expertise and helping to make sure that we don't make a bad move. As you said, and as I said, it's very important for a seamless transition for my children. I do not want to move into a neighborhood that doesn't fit the expectation of what I had. So really on making sure that you have an understanding of those, because that's something that's really hard for me to identify online.
Got it. Perfect. Now we're going to flip. I'm going to be the buyer and Gretchen's going to be the agent.
So, Chirag, thank you for sharing all of that information with me. We believe that the home is where you live your life, and where you're safe and where your family's comfortable. But we believe that community is where your life happens. It's your lifestyle. It's all about that. So it sounds like we're very much aligned in that. And the next part of this, I want to ask a few questions that are really all about the type of neighborhood you want to live in, the type of home you want to live in, and really try to align budgetarily wise and finances wise on where that is going to be positioned. So is it okay if I move forward with that?
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
So before we dive into it, you said you've got 2 children. What are their names?
My daughter, Valentina, who's 7, and my son, Chirag, who's 10.
So Valentina, who's 7, and Chirag, who's 10. And what's your wife's name?
Tiffany.
Tiffany. Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to meet her. So who else will be involved in this process with you? Will you and Tiffany and the children all be looking at homes together? Will they have an influence?
Well, obviously, we want them to be happy, but the 2 of us are ultimately the decision makers, and there's no one else involved.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. So what is the most important thing to you in a community?
We like to go out to eat. There's always that view you have of a community where, there are local shops and restaurants and just kind of looking around Raleigh and Google Maps, we see like this triangle area, I think it's called. And it is all shops and restaurants and different places and little coffee shops. And, that kind of vibe is what we're looking for, right? We find as people new in a community, that's where we can go meet other people, other families.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
So
want to be in like the middle of nowhere where the
got
town
it.
is like
So
25 minutes away.
yeah, so you want to be close to where there's activity, entertainment, things to do, places that you can meet people. Um, I know you've been looking online. What areas strike you as something as an area that you would like to explore a little bit more?
The only one that we really looked at that we actually understand is the triangle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in the triangle, there's Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh. We work in all of those areas and we will help you funnel this down just a little bit. Is there a commute that we need to attend to? Where will you be commuting to for work?
Yes, I need to be less than 30 minutes away.
Okay, and where is your office?
Have you ever heard of Epic Gains?
I have.
That's where our company is. I can't think of the office
Okay.
address.
I know exactly where it is. It's in an area we call Crossroads. It's in Cary, but it's right off of Highway 440. So that's an incredible location. And you want to be within 30 minutes of that location.
Mhm.
And you also said that you were interested in really good schools. What does a good school look like to you?
I'm looking at good schools in terms of, where we are now in Westport, Connecticut. There's an incredible amount of kids that have unique programmings. Like there is a emotional intelligence program for children.
Mm-hmm.
There are different creative programs for kids. There are programs that teach people on different ways of like, I'm trying to think of the word for this curriculum.
More executive coaching style programs.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. And so in terms of school, like that's what we're looking for. We know that when we pick this school district, a high amount of the kids that graduate end up going to like higher education places. And that just means that the curriculum's on par.
Got it. I totally understand that. And
Growth
I agree with
mindset,
you.
Gretchen. They have
You're,
a growth mindset program here.
you're very fortunate to be coming to a place that has such a diverse school system. So I think you'll be very pleased. So your family, what type of activities do you do? What are your hobbies? What are your kids doing on the weekends?
Well, like most parents that have 7 and 10 years old, my daughter's in gymnastics, my son does basketball, he does boxing as well, she does singing. I'm an avid golf player. My wife likes to play tennis. So those are really like our activities as a family. Outside of that, we really all like to go out to eat. We love
Mhm.
shopping.
Got it. Awesome. Okay. And then do you see yourself living in a community that may have pools, tennis, amenities of that sort? Or do you see yourself living more in a neighborhood that might have access to a country club?
Well, I never really thought about, I guess, till now that if there's a community where I am, they don't have communities like that. So look, if everything was in one community, as we shared earlier, like our kids making friendships and stuff, I think if there was a community that had families and had those amenities there, that would be great. It would probably also save us a lot of money in investing into a country club year after year.
Okay,
It
great,
would be
fantastic.
something we'd definitely like to explore.
So does your husband travel for work or do you travel for work at all?
Yes.
Okay, so do you need to be near within a range of the airport?
No, I don't travel that frequently. It's not
Okay.
a big thing.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel like is important to your lifestyle?
Yes. I don't necessarily want to be on top of somebody. Like I want
Mm.
privacy. I'd like space, and really what would be most helpful, Gretchen, is, we talked about that boots on the ground expert. So I find like a trade-off, right, between homes that have like a lot of yard space and acreage and how it's located to how far it is from a community. So really what would be helpful would be is the first time we go out, having a set of homes that were like within those type of developments that you were saying, and then a home that would require a country club membership, but also potentially offer more privacy and people not as close. So then we
Okay.
could really distill down a plan.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So let me just repeat this back to you and make sure that I fully understand exactly what type of lifestyle you want to live.
Yep.
You would like to be within 30 minutes of epic games. You would like to have access to shopping, dining, entertainment, be close to children's activities, potentially be in a master plan neighborhood that might have golf, tennis, swim, nature trails, walking trails, and such, and be in school systems that have growth-oriented mindsets.
Wow. You really listened well. Perfect. You got it.
Awesome. Well, I think those are all attainable things. Let's move into the type of home that you want to live in. So what are some important features of a home that you would want that you would see yourself living in?
High ceilings, like that, my wife always looks at me like I'm crazy for doing this, but I don't want an older home with 8-foot ceilings, right? I like an open floor plan. A colonial home is good, right? We like the way that the bedrooms are on the upstairs. We spend a lot of time in like our family room and kitchen, it's like with kids, they do their homework on the island and they're in the other room, we cook, that type of stuff.
Okay. So how many bedrooms do you see yourself needing?
Ideally 5.
And how would you use those? Obviously, one for the primary. You've got Valentina and Chirag. And how would you use the other 2?
One would be a home office,
Mhm.
and the other one would be a guest room.
Guest. Okay. And do you see yourself needing an additional recreation space, like a bonus room or a rec room for the kids to have?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. I'm one of those parents that's like slightly paranoid with the world and everything, and I want to have a house that has such amazing stuff that becomes the kids' hangout house. So having a room like that we could really build out now for the kids and in the future, that as they grow older with their friends, ours becomes a hangout house that everyone wants to go to, that the Shaw house is the fun house. That's the dream, Gretchen.
The Shaw Fun House. I like it. How long do you see yourself living in this home?
I don't want to move again.
Okay.
This is it.
And then ideally, how many bathrooms would you like to have? Would you like each bedroom to have one?
Yeah, I would actually be willing to pay a premium if each bedroom had an ensuite bathroom.
Okay. And you've talked a little bit about privacy and space. Do you need a screen porch, nice yard? Tell me a little bit about the
I would
outside.
I would love a screened in porch, and yes, privacy in the yard. I don't want to walk outside and see my neighbors.
Okay. Do you have any pets?
They got each kid as a guinea pig, and Valentine as a guinea pig and a goldfish. So no real pets.
So we got to contend with the guinea pigs. We got to make sure they've got a spot in the house. Okay, wonderful. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel like is important to you in the way that you live?
No, I think you've kind of nailed it, right? So,
do you entertain at all?
Yes.
See yourself entertaining? Okay. Awesome. All right. Let me articulate this back to you to make sure I've heard everything that you've said. So you are looking for a newer style of home with an open floor plan, high ceilings. You like a colonial exterior. You would like all of the bedrooms, 5 of which to be on the second floor. You would ideally pay a premium for each bedroom to have a bathroom, so 5 baths. You would love to have some privacy and space in the backyard. You'd love a screen porch. You see yourself entertaining, and you would love to have a large island in the kitchen for the kids to do homework. Is there anything that I've missed?
You're an incredible listener. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You're doing great at sharing. So a few more things and we are almost done. I want to talk about financing, budgeting, just so that I understand where you are. It's really important for me to understand where your mindset is so that I know what direction that we're going. There's 2 schools of thought. Typically, people are looking for a price range or they're looking for a monthly obligation. Which of those are you the most focused on?
Price point.
What price range are you feeling comfortable in?
About $2 million.
Okay. And have you spoken to a lender at this point in time?
Yeah, we currently own a home, so this is not our first time going through the process. We have spoken with the same lender essentially that helped us buy this home. So we're
Mhm.
pretty comfortable with what our down payment is and along that lines. And that's why we said that's why we said the purchase price. We
Mhm.
understand the rates are the rates, right? Like we can't control that. So we just want to focus on where our down payments are, what the costs are, and we have some good research that we've done ourselves on the variability in the interest rate. And the
Great. It
most
sounds like you're very educated on this. Who is the lender that you've spoken to?
Origin Point Mortgage.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with them.
We use the Compass agent here when we bought a house and selling the house, and that was the company that they recommended. So we've had a good experience.
Fantastic. Yeah, we've worked with Origin Point, and we really, really like them. So, a couple more questions. What is the down payment that you plan on putting down?
20%.
Okay, perfect. All right. And I think I've covered everything. If there's anything else, I'll come back and ask it. And I want to just share a few things on understanding the market. Obviously, when you're coming from out of state, you shared with me that it's very important that you work with someone who is an expert who understands the market. And so I want to go through just a few minutes and talk through what it is like to buy a home in this market. And the first question that I have for you is you said that an expert is really important to you. How many homes do you think an average real estate agent sells per year?
I have no idea.
Take a
Not
guess.
my business.
Just take a
10, 12?
Yeah. Well, that's a great guess, and that's what a lot of people guess. The average agent in our market in the Triangle sells 5 houses a year. And 5 houses a year, is that something that you would consider an expert?
No, not at all.
I would agree with that. So on our team, our agents sell between 12 and 25 homes a year. So we have our finger on the pulse of the market. And myself included, I've been in this market for over 20 years. And I've been in every town, in every suburb, and in every neighborhood. And so I feel like I can definitely lend a lot of that expertise from not only myself, but from my other clients who have moved here from out of state and have built their lives in a community. And I was able to help facilitate that. I'm still in touch with them. So I get to hear a lot about communities, and I know that's really important to you. So I wanted to start there. Um, there are 4 steps that I see in purchasing a home in this market. The first step is choosing, me as your agent and getting pre-approved, which it sounds like you've already done. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. The next step is to find and view properties. And we're going to talk about some tools that we use to do that and how we can help find homes that may not be available yet online. We're going to go through selecting your home, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to help you win, how we're going to structure that offer to make sure that you are the winner. And then we're going to walk you through the steps of closing, and we're going to end with a housewarming party to get you introduced to your neighbors so that your kids can get a very quick start to getting off and running in their new neighborhood. How does all that sound?
Sounds incredible.
Awesome. So there's a couple of things that are really important for us to cover when it comes to a partnership. There are 3 keys to an effective partnership. And the first one are things that you can control. And the things that you can control in this transaction are the price that you offer. You can control your terms. You can control your financing, your contingencies. And in this market, we do things a little bit different. And I'll explain due diligence to you, but you can control that due diligence, and you can control the speed at which you follow through. Would you agree that those are things within your control?
Yes.
So there's some things that I can control in this. I can help control the negotiation strategy. I can control communications on your behalf. I can control putting you in front of properties that are not yet on the market through Compass Exclusive. And I can help interpret market data from a very experienced 23 years in the business lens. Would you agree that those are things that I can control?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about what you can control and what I can control, there are the things that neither one of us can control. And it's very important to understand these things because some of them are happening right now. We cannot control world events. We can't control the local economy. We can't control the stock market. We cannot control interest rates, and we cannot control what other people are willing to pay for homes in this market. Would you agree that those are things beyond our control? So I thank you for that. This is something that we will come back to over and over during our partnership to make sure that we're always aligned in these keys, because we want to be successful with you every single step of this process that we take. We've talked about where you are in the financial process, and it sounds like Origin's point has gotten you straightened, has gotten you pointed in the right direction. And so I'd like to go through what to expect financially and really knowing your numbers when it comes to buying a home in this market. It's different in every market, and it may sound elementary for me to go through this with you, but it's really important so that when we get to this point in the transaction that you fully understand everything. First of all, there's always your purchase price and there's always your down payment. We've talked about those two things. In North Carolina, when you make an offer on a home, there are two deposits that can be due. The first deposit is called a due diligence deposit, and that deposit could be anywhere from 0 up to about 10% of the purchase price of the home. That is a deposit that is paid as a fee to the seller for them taking the house off the market so that you can do your due diligence. That due diligence is credited on your closing disclosure to you, but it is a non-refundable deposit that you pay to the seller at the time of contract. And the second one is an earnest money deposit. And that's a lot of times what is typical in a market like you're coming out of. You write one check, it goes to an attorney, and it's held in a trust account. And that money could be refundable, but it most likely is not. But it's held in a trust account. Those are the two biggest differences. And I don't want to hone in too much on this conversation because our state does it differently than others. So I'm just going to keep going through the way that I would explain it. The second piece, after you go under contract, there are a few things that you're going to want to do. Number one, a home inspection, which is anywhere $700, $900 on a home in our market. You're going to have an appraisal that is going to be required by your lender, Origin Point. That's going to be anywhere from $600 to $900, and that's typically due when the appraisal is ordered. You're going to have an administration fee and closing cost. And these fees are all rolled into your closing disclosure. You will have closing costs, which end up in our market being between 1 and 2.5%, depending on the type of loan. What we will do is we'll go through these numbers with your lender, make sure you understand them fully. These fees include taxes, title, attorney's cost, our admin fees, surveys, and any origination fee for your loan. And they also include our fee, which is a 2.5% commission that our team charges to help find your home for you. Do you have any questions on that?
No, I'll save my questions for the end. So far, so good.
Perfect. So the next step in this is identifying your home. And it sounds like you have been looking for homes online. How are you currently looking at homes?
On Zillow.
So Zillow is a great tool. A lot of people use it. I have to say, sometimes when I'm driving around, I do pop that app open every once in a while. So a couple of things that we do a little bit differently is we get you set up with real-time searches. Did you know that sometimes on Zillow and third-party sites, there is a delay in posting? Did you realize that?
No, and given the inventory shortages that my wife had shared earlier, that's really a concern.
Sometimes it could take up to 24 hours for a home to post on a third-party site like a Zillow or a Realtor.com. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is get you set up on a search that will give you real-time information. And we do that through something we call the Compass Collection. And that collection will not only give you access to homes that are on the market that fit your specific criteria and be completely curated, but it will also give you priority access to homes that may not be on the market yet. These are called Compass exclusives. And do you feel like in a low inventory market that putting you in front of a home before anybody else knows it exists could help your home search?
We would love that.
Yeah, most people do. And I tell you, we do about 30% of our business off market, which is a huge asset to our buyers. We do that through Compass Collections, but we also use our private seller database, our agent referral network. Like we're very tied in this market. And we also can use our inside sales team to help make calls. We know about sellers who we have sold homes to before, who were our buyers at that time, who now are thinking about selling their homes. So we use all four of those strategies to help find and procure opportunities for you that we basically create in the market because they weren't there online.
Now, all of this sounds very exciting.
Yeah, I thought you would like that. So a lot of people, you've shared with me that you do have some concerns about buying a home in this market, interest rates being one of those, inventory being one of those. I feel like we've helped you get past the inventory piece of that. We're going to do everything we can to proactively find you a home. But I do want to talk about, buying now and rates. And it sounds like you guys are moving no matter what. Do you have any concerns around interest rates at this time?
Ultimately we have to move, right? Because I'm getting a job and everything else. So yeah, I do have concerns with them going up, but lately it seems like they have come down a little bit. So, we would like to take advantage of whatever we can, knowing that there's a good chance we could just refinance later.
Well, you're smart to do that because that is a conversation that I like to bring up is, we are in a marketplace where with inventory being low in some areas and not so low in others, and with rates fluctuating, it's a prime opportunity for you to be able to get in and really make the numbers work to your advantage because you can refinance. So, I love to share something that I call leverage returns. And you obviously understand a leverage return because you own a home currently. But sometimes when I say, do you know what a leverage return is? The answer's often no. A leverage return is where you're able to get the appreciation of a home when you put your down payment down and you use the bank's money to finance the rest. So let's say you're buying a $2 million home, you're putting down 20%, you're financing the rest of that. You're able to earn appreciation on the entire amount versus just on the 20%. And I always try to point people in that direction, especially when we're looking at the numbers as a whole. Once we find the home, we will talk a little bit more about this, but it's important to understand that homes in our market have appreciated from 2009 to 2019 by about 30%. That's about a 3% average rate of return every year. Obviously, during COVID, things spiked and we had a little over a 40% growth over those 3 years. So we're going to look at all of the data as we start to dig into neighborhoods. We are very much data driven, but we also understand that understanding those numbers for you are really important in helping you make the right decision when it comes to the type of neighborhood that you want to live in. The financing has to play into that.
Totally makes sense.
The next piece to this is crafting the winning offer. And we've talked a lot about what our value is and what our team does. Crafting the offer on your home is a sit down conversation, and it is something that we like to talk about ahead of time. We feel like that there are 12 different scenarios that come into crafting an offer on your home, and purchase price is the last one of those. We typically believe you can negotiate on price or terms, but it's oftentimes hard to negotiate on both. So what we do once we identify a home is we sit down and we go through closing date. We go through what the sellers are looking for. We talk about your deposit structure. We talk about your lender, your financing, your down payment. We go through your appraisals and home inspections and how long we need for that due diligence time. And then we talk about purchase price at the end. And the reason that we do that is because we believe that if you have all of those other items stacked up perfectly, on a home that you want in a neighborhood that you want, that purchase price is the last thing you need to discuss because you're going to be able to write something that is really compelling to a seller based off of what would be a win for the seller and a win for you. And we believe that's how 82% of our clients win the first or second time they make an offer versus having to write 3, 4, or 5 offers in a very low inventory market. How does that sound?
Sounds like you actually have a plan, a strategy, and a process.
A plan, a strategy, and a process are everything in this. And I want to end with a couple of other things on our value. You know, I don't like to talk about I don't like to draw attention to us, but I do think success leaves clues. And I think it's important for you as a buyer coming into this market to plug yourself into a team that has a ton of success. We are the #1 Compass team in the Triangle. We've helped over 2,050 families buy and sell homes in this market, which is pretty remarkable over the 23 years that I've been in business. And the agents on our team, including myself, do about 5 times the business of an average agent in this market. So do all of these things sound like something that could help you find the right home for you and your family?
Yes, and I think you've done a good job listening to us and really understanding the intricate details of what makes what our home and our lifestyle is unique to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. And I would love an opportunity to work with you. So does it sound like that we might be a great fit for your family?
100%.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to help you all find your perfect home here in the Triangle. There's a couple of next steps that we have. We're going to go through the buyer agreement paperwork. We're going to talk through all of that and share with you, how we work. And then we're going to go through and we're going to create your buyer profile in our Compass collection and get everything organized for you so that we can communicate with you and Tiffany in one place and keep all of our homes that we're looking at in all of our neighborhoods organized and complete. And then we're going to go start taking a look at houses. How does that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Awesome.
So
Thank
look,
you.
she identified the clear next steps. One of the things, depending on the way this conversation flowed, right, we would talk about the Compass advantage.
Mhm.
And when you're thinking about the Compass advantage, see, Gretchen is an anomaly in the sense that there's 27 other people there, right? So when she talks about this, it's unique to her as we're encouraging to make it unique to you. Some things that people will bring up in terms of what makes you unique, what makes you different is number one, I look at Business Tracker different than everybody else. So how's it really an advantage? Well, we utilize a $1 billion technology platform to collaborate your entire experience in one place. From the way that we're able to put your documents together so you have all the important information, the way that we put your home search, every tour that you've gone on, down to the properties that we've given you market values on, down to the offers we've written, are in one place so that we can collaborate it through our entire team. So God forbid, Gretchen, something happens to me or I'm not available, that there's no one that could service you. Would you find that helpful in an agent that you partnered with?
Absolutely. And I feel like it's important to build that in throughout any presentation that you give, because I think it needs to be teed up to be to the benefit of the client. And in order for you to understand what is going to benefit them the most, you have to understand that needs analysis. So instead of doing one slide for that, we build it in throughout every piece of the process.
Exactly, because if not, it's just going to be completely out of context. And the
It
next
is.
part is,
It's out of context and most people aren't really thinking about it through them. So we build it in where we start talking about the Compass collection and setting up real-time data and doing that Compass exclusive, being able to get homes that are off market, and then being able to build into that in the end as we move through the process and talk about the collection as a way for us to stay organized and communicate.
and another great way to share your advantage as a Compass agent is like, here are the 3 ways that we find off-market opportunities. 1 are private exclusives. 2 is our agent network. And I think according to Robert, there are 28,000 transactions that were done last year from agent to agent referrals. So we have access to people and inventory that doesn't exist. And then the third one is our technology uses artificial intelligence to identify people looking to make a move. So every agent has a list of likely to sells, and there's 30,000 agents that have 30,000 contacts, and that's something we can leverage as well. So in doing that, you're now creating unique positioning, right? So at the end of it, you want to be very purposeful as we share in the experience mapping, what you want somebody to think, how do you want them to feel, what do you want them to do? So like kind of in dissecting what Gretchen did and looking at this and giving you all some tips to inspire you on doing it is, look, the first part of that whole Med-C and that whole magic question, what do you envision an agent doing that you feel you can't do yourself? Gretchen, do you feel that you had everything you need next to do my needs analysis?
Absolutely. Like I could have taken, these are all my notes. That's just on a conversation that we role played out. This is the magic, right? If you don't know these things, you have no idea what is important to them. And so when you go through a typical buyer presentation or a typical buyer pitch, all you're doing is talking about yourself, and you're not able to articulate how what you have is going to benefit them. That's where true value is.
And it's also understanding, like through the experience mapping and everything else, what your unique value proposition is. And this way, you can understand the context. And this is the magic I always say here. When you can be very clear and present on who you are, what your value is, what your standards are, how you service people, what your value is as a Compass agent, how do you use this billion-dollar technology platform, and know how to ask the right questions, meet somebody where they are, understand the gap of what they want in an agent, and only share that. Getting an agreement signed and talking about compensation are easy next steps because people see the value in the service in the eyes of what they want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I find going through that process, and it's different for everyone, right? If you're a newer agent, you're leveraging different stats, but you're tying the whole process into what is important to that buyer. And as you go through that, by the time you get to the end and it's time for you to go through the agreement, they've already said yes so many times. You've already positioned to them in a way that makes it to their benefit to work with you. So why would they go work with anybody else? And it almost becomes it's not a conversation that you have to defend. It's an automatic next step.
Exactly. So, all right. So for all of us, talk about automatic next steps, right? So there are a lot of us here that have gotten a lot of value today. And before I go into sharing what people who want to continue that got value with us today and our exciting coaching program for next year, let me ask you this. I've worked with you for over a year. We've done this process for yourself and also your team members who are newer agents. So it kind of fits a whole gambit. What is the most valuable part that you found as an agent plugging into our system?
I really think the scripting is an important piece. I think understanding and having a process is a huge piece of this. I feel like learning to leverage the Compass technology. We talked about this a little bit in our training that Compass has a high perceived value or high value on their technology because they spent $1 billion to build it. Agents, depending on whether or not they use it, have a value of that too. And there's a difference between a perceived value and what you feel like you offer versus an actualized value and what the client feels like you offer. And so when it comes to the Compass technology, if you use it, you're an agent who stays here, you grow your business, and you wouldn't want to leave it because it would be like going back 5 years in technology. If you're an agent who doesn't leverage the technology, you have you feel like Compass has a high perceived value, and you complain and there's lots of things that are going on, and you may end up leaving because you feel like it doesn't have a value for what you spend to be here. And it's really important to note that learning how to leverage the tools that we have is really important. And I think that's one of the things that my team and I have gained the most is really understanding how to position every single one of our tools so that a buyer or seller wants to use them and use them consistently to help make the process more seamless.